Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm really excited to be doing this particular training. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melissa Kotter, and this particular topic I chose because I find it fascinating and it really does work when it comes to learning a few things about people skills that can really help you to deliver your message more effectively when it comes to communicating with others about ASEA. And the purpose of being able to know how to really effectively build rapport is important when it comes to communicating your why, but making authentic connections with people so that you can pique their interest and get them to understand or at least take a look at ASEA, the gift of ASEA that we're offering. So I'll get straight into it. I'm also going to talk about different personality types. And I'm going to talk about it in regards to a system that I learned and have been using for over 21 years now. That's the length of time I've been in our profession, the network marketing profession, and it really has made a huge difference for me. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is look at building rapport. And when it comes to why the need to build rapport, some of this will make complete sense to you. It'll be, for some of you out there, you will naturally be doing this anyway. It is part of the human experience to be able to build rapport. And sometimes if you tweak it just a little bit and look at what you're doing, it can make a massive difference to what you're communicating with people, as I said before. And we're also going to look at some nonverbal communication skills that are really, really important. If you haven't wrapped your head around them or you're not sure what you're doing, I'm going to have a look at those, because maybe you're not converting people to listen to your message about ASEA. Maybe you're around people who easily connect with others, pique interest, and build rapport easily, but we'll break it down in terms of personality styles. But when it comes to making a genuine connection with people, the important thing when it comes to building rapport in particular, and why we do it, is because when we're in front of other people, it's not about us. We're there to serve them, to uncover their needs, and to see if ASEA will be an actual fit for them. Because ASEA is not for everyone. The molecules are, but the business model isn't. Some people don't need a plan B. Some people are just not looking. So what happens is, without having a sense of rapport with people, we will struggle to add value to their lives through ASEA. They won't be able to experience the ASEA difference if we blow it, because we're not aware of the rapport building skills we have, or maybe we haven't prepared for the meeting well enough, and I'll get into that in just a minute. So the idea is we want to be able to add value to their lives, and we want to be able to pique interest and connect with them effectively so they're open to taking more of a look at ASEA. Now, this surprised me when I first came across the information, but I thought it was longer than 7 seconds, but people actually decide if they like you within the first 7 seconds of meeting you. And some researchers suggest that 1/10 of a second is all it takes to start determining traits like trustworthiness. So what I mentioned before about the nonverbal communication that we're actually delivering, and we all do it, it's really important to know what that's about with us so that we can make a genuine connection, build trust quickly, and have people genuinely like us and feel the place that we're coming from within the first 7 seconds of meeting us. This is a document that's in the team tools that Bart and I have created. It's in the Share It Guide, page 13. If you don't have it, that's okay, because I am going to cover points A to F in terms of this webinar tonight when it comes to building rapport and some of the steps that we need to be focusing on to be able to put our best foot forward for a successful outcome. So if you do have the Share It Guide, it's page 13, as I mentioned. So how do I successfully build rapport? Well, you actually start to build rapport successfully before the actual meeting with somebody. So what this means, and I'm a huge proponent when it comes to checking in terms of how we're coming across to people. So think about how you would like to be received, whether it's a catch up in front of a group of people, whether it's a one-on-one meeting at a coffee shop, or if you're with somebody else, with a member of your downline, for example, one of your associates, and you're going to meet their brand new person. Whatever it is, and whenever you're out there, make sure that you check in with yourself and find out where your emotional state's at, where your vibration's at, so to speak. Because if you're having a hard day and you're maybe not in the most positive of moods, then you really aren't going to do that person justice that you're going to meet with or even talk with over the telephone if you're not going to manage your vibration, if you're not going to check in and get in the best possible state that you can be in, because we're adding value to somebody's life. And if we're not coming across with the right attitude and we're not in the right frame of mind to be able to connect with them, they'll feel that. They'll pick that up. It'll be very loudly received. And as you saw before with that statistic, within seconds, you don't want to blow an opportunity for somebody to experience the ASEA gift just because you're tired or you're not feeling great. So planning ahead before the meeting to make sure you check in. There's so many techniques that you can use. Maybe you have your favorite technique already, but what I love is to be able to use visualization also to be able to get myself in the right state. And I love to be able to look at my ASEA why and really check in and really have a great heart connection with that. So before I go into that in any more detail, this just gives you an idea, because I'm going to be talking a little bit about body language. Some of you may know a lot about this, and it is a lot of fun when you start to look into it. There's been a whole field that's been around for decades called Neuro Linguistic Programming, or NLP, which is studies and helps you to understand the subtle forms of communication. And Richard Bandler was a gentleman who first created this technique, and Tony Robbins went on to take it to the world in a really huge way. And this just gives you an idea of how our body language communicates our mood and the state that we're in, whether it's on the phone. People know if you're smiling on the phone or if you're upbeat, if it's in person, no matter how it is, in front of the room. If you're going to sit back with your arms crossed, this just gives you an idea that you're being defensive. This here is somebody with an arrogant posture. This obviously looks like an annoyed posture, but you can really tell if you're feeling this way before a meeting. Sorry, I'm all over the place with my cursor tonight. If you're feeling this way before a meeting, then that's the message you're going to be mimicking and potentially even mirroring in the person you're catching up with. Same with being irritated down here. If you're happy, then your person you're meeting with, your prospect, is going to be happy. Confused, well, you won't hopefully go to a meeting confused, but if the person you're meeting with is exhibiting this body language, I'll show you in a minute how you can get through that. And if you're worried, if you're not really certain about yourself, if you feel on some level you have limiting beliefs, as we all do, but if you feel that they're coming to the surface, making you worried about how you're going to come across, maybe you don't know exactly the right thing to say, maybe they won't like you, maybe you're just starting out new and you're just not sure of exactly what you need to say. And the reality is that's all perfect to come from that perspective. But if you've got limiting beliefs under the surface that's really driving your behaviors in that regard, then you can easily identify them and just get rid of them by putting yourself in a great space and a great state and preparing before the meeting. So I mentioned that I love visualization. So regardless of if I'm talking in front of the room, if I'm meeting with somebody one-on-one, if it's over the telephone, regardless, I always visualize the outcome, particularly if I'm meeting with someone for the very first time. So I don't get out of the car, I don't go in to meet with anybody, I don't step foot out on the stage unless I absolutely think through the connection. And you've got to feel into this, you've got to feel into the vibration of how you want to come across. And I picture meeting the person, I picture my state being upbeat and happy, being myself, comfortable in my own skin, loving them, giving them the space to be all of who they are, definitely in a vibration of serving them, as I mentioned before. The whole idea of building rapport and understanding personality types is so that you can add value to their lives and you can give them the gift of ASEA. And so I visualize offering that gift. I visualize leaving the meeting having a really high upbeat feeling, being proud of myself, being honored that I've met such an amazing person or people. And I just picture that before I go in, because, and so it is, meaning as we set ourselves up to have that outcome, we create that outcome through the connection that we have. So visualization to me is really, really important. Now, if visualization doesn't really resonate with you, then coming across with certainty and conviction and being on purpose is a really great way to prepare for the building of rapport when you meet somebody. So a good place to start is to reconnect with your ASEA why. If you haven't already really deepened your ASEA why, you don't really know what it is as yet, that's okay. You can take a screenshot of this slide, or in the Launch It guide, I go into a little bit more of an exercise on how to ask yourself certain questions to really draw out a deeper meaning or connection with your ASEA why. Because when you're talking with somebody, this comes across, as I said before, with certainty and conviction and a real sense of leadership. You're really in a leadership position where people know that you know what you're talking about because you know why you're doing ASEA. And as we all know, once we understand the gift of ASEA, we have a personal responsibility to share it with other people. And it is a gift that keeps on giving. And as Tyler Norton, ASEA founder, who said, sharing ASEA with others could possibly be the greatest act of friendship that we can perform. So that's a gift that we're offering too, the gift of friendship through sharing ASEA with other people. So you'll see here in one of the quotes with Tony Robbins, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning you give it. And over here, there's another quote, you don't end up with a meaningful life, you have to create it. So when you start connecting with your ASEA why, it really will help you to get in a great state to prepare for your meetings. And this is a gentleman, if you want to dig into this deeper, which I think is really important. His name's Simon Sinek. He's the author of Start With Why and Find Your Why. This made a huge difference to me when it comes to what I was communicating with other people about ASEA. And pretty much what Simon says here, I'll just read it out. Simon teaches leaders and organisations how to inspire people. He has a goal to help build a world in which people wake up every single day feeling inspired, feeling safe at work, and feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. He's trained ethnographer and is active in many projects and products to inspire people. So he knows what his purpose is, and maybe your purpose, your ASEA why, is the same, to help liberate people from a job that they don't like, or to help people take charge of their life when it comes to their health, absolutely, with ASEA, but also maybe their finances as well. So when you can come from a deep conviction, as I've said, with your why, it really makes a difference. And here's why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. And working hard for something you don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. And that passion will come across when you're connected to your ASEA why. So think about what you stand for before you go and connect with somebody about ASEA, before you pick up the telephone. really think that through, because when you can put words to it, you're better able to inspire them through action. You'll make a better connection with them and build rapport so much more easily. You'll inspire them to join your cause. And it's a statement about who you really are and what you stand for in life. And trust me, when it comes to connecting with other people, it absolutely changes everything than an attitude of going in with a telling and selling mentality, maybe talking too much. That doesn't build rapport, and that's not what this webinar is about tonight. So moving on to the different personalities, this is also something I do before I prepare for every meeting. Now, this works in a situation where, for example, if I go out with an associate and I'm meeting their new contact, then I want to ask questions of my new associate about that new contact when it comes to actually their personality. And there are so many systems that I'll run through a few of them in a second that really categorizes different personality profiles. And it's been around for a long time in a behavioral science aspect, where people are always trying to figure out who they are and who the people are around them so that they can add the greatest value. But at the end of the day, it comes down to when you have an idea of the personality type of the person you're chatting with or connecting with, it means that you can build rapport more easily. It also means that pre-preparing and knowing a little bit about them and knowing which quadrant they fit into, which I'll go into in a minute, means that you can really talk to their particular personality type and mirror your body language, for example, which I'll go into in a second as well, to match theirs, change the cadence of your speech, etc., which is all part of rapport building, so that you can more effectively pique their interest and uncover their needs. And also it will determine what you actually end up sending people. So this is a system you may be familiar with when it comes to personality types. It's been around for a really long time. It's based on the Myers-Briggs personality differentiator. And I was first exposed to this in my early 20s when I was recruited by a pharmaceutical company. And it can get really intense and confusing. I've found an easier way to be able to classify personality types, but this just gives you an idea. If you've heard of Myers-Briggs, they're classifying people when it comes to basically extroverts and introverts and whether they're perceivers or judges. And it's a fascinating topic. And the key when I go through this is to realize that we fit in often all categories, but some of them we are more predominantly attached to, or we exhibit more to the world that way. And that's worth understanding what the main quadrant is that you fall into, because it helps you to understand your core values more and how you're coming across to other people. This is a DISC system that is really popular too. It's got dominant for people who are results oriented, forceful, strong-willed. It's got more of the analytical, reserved, systematic and precise analytical people under the C. It's got even-tempered, accommodating, patient and tactful under the S, and outgoing, enthusiastic and optimistic or lively under the I. So there's definitely the bank system, which I know some people in ASEA have used or still use and get phenomenal results. Breaks it down across people categorized in blueprint, action, nurturing or knowledge. But I like the CAP system, which I started using 21 years ago, and it stands for controllers, analyzers, promoters and supporters. Now, with all the personality systems out there, these are the main 4 personality types that it's broken down into. And in the Share It guide that I have on page 26, if you don't have that guide, that's okay. You can get it from thekotters.com on our website as well, in the shop section of the website. So it just gives you an idea here of what a controller would stand for. And as I mentioned, there's many models out there and you may fit in each of these sections, but you'll be likely dominant in one of them. And with the people that you're meeting, when I chat with my associate and find out a little bit more about who I'm meeting and what some of their key attributes are, it gives me an opportunity to really be prepared for that meeting based on, am I talking to or am I going to talk to a controller? And for the purpose of the definition I have here, they're seen as take charge people. They love facts and they love real data. They're quite dominant, the D for dominant in the DISC system. They like things to be done quickly and usually in their way. So typical type A personality, if that's something that you're more familiar with. They're usually socially outgoing, but not always. They're usually socially outgoing. They're not afraid to speak out or give their opinion on an issue. They demand fast action from people. They're not afraid to use authority or be the authority. They like people and information that gets to the point, and they like to dress to impress. So they mostly wear business suits. They dress powerfully in sometimes really powerful colors, some blacks and reds and colors like that. And they're typically neatly groomed. So in terms of identifying a few character traits, I'm going to talk to a controller differently than I'm going to necessarily talk with an analyzer. So with a controller, for example, I'm not going to do a lot of the talking. Since they like things to be done quickly in their way, my personal approach is to let them do the talking, and I just need to step in and ask the appropriate questions to help uncover their needs, to help me find out what makes them tick and what they may be looking for in their life. So I'm going to let them lead the way. I'm not going to meet them with a dominant personality. I'm going to get to the point. They don't like waffling. And so if you're going to waffle with them, they'll just be switched off. So getting to the point is really, really important. Giving them information that's factual and real data is very important as well for them. And you'll know when you're with a controller if you haven't figured it out beforehand, because they'll basically give you their opinion. They'll let you know where they're at. One of the aspects of the controlling personality that I love is they'll let you know their objections around ASEA or our profession pretty quickly in the conversation. Not always, but I love it because then you actually have some traction. You actually have something you can work on with them. Now, typically controllers speak quickly, and if that's their style and your personality is such that you're more laid back, you may be more, for want of, reluctant to introduce another term, but it pops in my head, kinesthetic, you're more of a feeling type of person, then my suggestion when you're meeting with a controller type personality, speed up your language, match their cadence. That's the way of building rapport with them. And that's a way that they'll actually be able to listen. It'll help you to earn their respect and trust more quickly. And I'll go into in a minute, the reason why I'm talking about this, as I said, is because you will be sending them to a different place than you would send some of the other personality profiles to get the information they need quickly and factually with the data that they need that supports their journey in ASEA. Because remember, your goal is to pique their interest so they can take an educated look at ASEA and decide whether or not that's for them, whether or not they have a need that ASEA will actually fulfill for them. So let's have a look at the A for analyzers. Now, I'm quite analytical. I'm also quite controlling as well. I've got quite dominance in these areas, but analyzers, they're the thinkers. They love the facts, the figures and the evidence. They're not necessarily going to be like the controllers where they'll make quick decisions in the time that you connect with them. They'll need to be dripped on over time through repetitive connections, because when you're connecting with someone through ASEA, it's not a one-time event. You are building trust and rapport over time. And with the analyzers, that personality type, they'll need the right information to be able to make a decision based on analysing that information, and it may take time. Typically, analyzers are socially reserved people. They tend to be more the observers in social events and group meetings, which means that they rarely voice their opinion on an issue unless they're absolutely certain of their position, which is fantastic because with analyzers, you know that when they speak, it's usually very thoughtful, it's usually quite accurate, and it's usually what they absolutely mean. So that's phenomenal when you're meeting with an analyzer or preparing to meet with somebody who's quite analytical, because you know that when you're communicating with them, they will absolutely have an opinion rooted in already having done some research, whether that's for ASEA or against ASEA, but it means that they've thought it through. No point trying to take them on another journey to tell them that what they've found isn't accurate, because you've got to be able to address their needs up front with other analytical information to back up what you're saying, so that you can speak their language and connect with them and build rapport with them and quick respect. They tend to be really organized and accurate, which is fabulous, because when you're talking to these people and you set timeframes, you say, if I sent you this information, would you? Then they'll organize themselves to look at that information if you get that commitment from them, and they'll be very detail oriented when they go through the information that you send them. So make sure that what you send to them is information that's not superfluous. It really has to be factual, and they will go through, for example, the compensation plan with the ASEA that you necessarily would not send other personality types. They're often slow to act, but it doesn't mean that they're not leaders, and it doesn't mean that they're never going to make a decision. You just need to nurture them and meet them where they're at their pace. They tend to typically dress conservatively and in conservative colours. So what pops in my mind would be, for example, occupations such as, accountants, anyone that is doing any sort of detail-oriented job, whether it's scientists, regardless. You wouldn't find typically an artist in this analyzer category, but just know if they're dressing conservatively, if you don't have a lot of information on their personality type before you meet with them, if you're meeting someone for the very first time at a social event, for example, and they're dressed quite conservatively, you might think, as you start to build rapport and watch their nonverbal communication as well as the language they speak, whether or not they're an analyzer or whether they're maybe a controller. But either way, you get the idea in terms of the dress style that they usually appear in. Now, promoters are fun to be around because they love to have fun. They're enthusiastic, they're high energy people who approach tasks with spirit, and they're big picture thinkers. So if you're meeting with somebody and they're big picture thinkers and you're going in to talk details and, for example, compensation plan type information, they'll switch off, you'll lose them, there goes the rapport. So mostly because they're mediocre with details and follow up. They're always oriented toward the future. So when you are connected with your ASEA Y, when you stand firm in what you stand for and you have conviction with it, they love that because they're oriented for the future, for what they can create and what they can build in ASEA. And they're very drawn to people who have that conviction because they have the certainty and safety that's developed in knowing that you're going somewhere and they want to join you, particularly if they know that that journey's fun. So when you're in front of a promoter, if you're an analytical type personality or somebody who doesn't really relax that easily in public, and you want to be aware that you'll need to relax a little bit, change your language to maybe speak with higher cadences, with more enthusiasm, with more fun, with more passion. And if naturally you're a personality, as I said, that's more analytical and controlling based, take someone who is more promoter oriented with you, which will help to just build the overall rapport through the group dynamic. So they're creative, they make often elaborate and impractical plans. So this personality type usually needs to be balanced with other personality types to get things done. They usually have several projects going at exactly the same time. So you have to be aware that they may not focus on ASEA straight away. You may have to keep dripping information to them because they're juggling so many things. You may have to keep getting it on their radar so that they can focus on it to be able to make a decision, which means when you're in person with them talking, you may have to bring them back around eventually to the topic at hand so they don't go off on too many tangents. They're movers who highly value continuous action. So they love incentives in ASEA, for example. They love winning promotions and holidays where they can not only take continuous action but have fun. They usually wear loud, bright colours and dress creatively and with individuality. So if you're not sure and on first glance you meet someone for the first time and they're in loud, bright colours, they're maybe wearing fun glasses, they have funky hairdo, they're not afraid to be, I guess, extroverted in the way they come across, they're probably a promoter. So you want to keep that in mind in terms of how you're going to relate to them. Supporters. I remember someone said to me one time, and it's easy to do this, if someone says, oh, you're a supporter, I remember thinking, I was offended by that. I thought, geez, I know I have a lot of supportive qualities. Definitely, that is absolutely me. But I took these categorizations quite personally, and I thought that being a supporter was a bad thing. It's like, oh, that's all I am, a supporter. I mean, that sounds silly because I wanted to identify with some of the other leadership qualities that I thought belonged in the other quadrants. But interestingly enough, supporters are often real leaders of groups. And at first, it may not seem that obvious. Supporters are really fabulous to be around and easy to connect with if you've got a lot of supporter in yourself, because they're typically people who everyone likes. They're empathetic and very considerate of others. They're emotional and excitable at times. They're warm and easy to be around. They're engaging from a listening perspective when you're chatting with them. So they'll listen to you with what you have to say about ASEA. They're great communicators. So it'll be a really easy conversation that you'll be having with them. They highly value personal relationships. So they want to be your friend. They want to bring out the best in you. So when you're communicating with them, they're a safe personality type to be around. They usually don't like to be alone, and that will factor in a minute when it comes to what information you'll send to them. They're subjected to peer pressure. So what that often means is if you have an associate, for example, or you make a connection with somebody that you're meeting with an associate, if they know that they can get engaged and start a team and lead a group, if they're not necessarily rank advancing and someone underneath them is, this will help create that peer pressure that will inevitably move them forward. They tend to wear natural fibers, dress in a down-to-earth manner, and they don't usually give sometimes a lot of thought to their clothing, but it doesn't mean that they're not interested in ASEA and going to engage in a really huge way, particularly when you talk to these personality types about ASEA's Advancing Life Foundation. So I'll go into what to send them and suggested websites a little bit further down in this webinar. So building rapport, we've chatted about how to prepare yourself through visualization, through getting in a phenomenal state. If that puts you in that state, to connect with your ASEA why, or watch a convention video on the internet, or watch the ASEA Genesis video where you can really connect with how and why ASEA was founded and ended up in the hands of the network marketing business model for our benefit. Whatever it is that juices you up to get into state, that's important. So I've mentioned a couple of things, as well as being prepared for different personality types when you meet with people, and visualizing, getting back to that in a second, because it's an important point, visualizing a really successful outcome. Now, body language, as I said before, it's fun and it's the basis of NLP. And you can see that when people cross their arms and legs, for example, if you're communicating with somebody and they're crossing their arms and legs, you can certainly open that body posture, but know that if they've lost eye contact with you, if they've got a defensive body posture, then they're not actively listening. Potentially, they're not interested in what you have to say. You can win them over. You can totally bring them around. And as we know, if you've been in ASEA for a little while, sometimes people who appear at first the most offensive and the most angry are the people who can become your greatest business builders and leaders in your ASEA business. But just be aware of this body language. I mean, we're not going to typically come across this body language and continue to talk if someone's menacing in front of us. I certainly will be asking more questions to help pull them out, or I'll end the conversation and they won't be somebody that I necessarily want to build an ASEA business with, particularly if I can identify that they're not interested in their health, or that menacing is a bit of a strong word for this particular image, but you get the point. A hostile attitude, we'll get that sometimes too. And yet again, arms crossed. Sometimes the eye contact you have absolutely with hostility will come across. And this is a bit extreme, but if you're meeting with somebody who's like that, maybe they're doing their friend a favor by meeting with you, then you can absolutely bring them around, but just be very aware of that. You don't want to discount this body language, because you'll need to put some work into bringing them out by asking them engaging questions about themselves. Now, this would be typically a supporter. They're interested. I mean, the hands on the face says interested. The hands on the hips are usually quite a defensive pose, but just let's say the supporters in terms of they want to be your friend, they're interested in what you have to say, they're really supportive. And when you talk in front of a room full of people too with ASEA, it's really helpful to engage with this personality type and someone with this body language in the room. They'll boost your spirits, they'll encourage you to keep going, because they're there to help you win. It's just their natural disposition and personality. And then it's not unlikely, I mean, this image is more on the negative side, but some people, they get in front of you and they're impatient to leave because they've got body language of, yep, you know, I want to be somewhere else, I'm disinterested. Hopefully you won't come across people who think you're stupid, but if you do, that's all right. Be brief, get to the point, try and uncover their needs as quickly as possible, see if it's a fit, and if not, don't take it personally. They're not ready, they're not looking, they're not interested in changing their health, and it's next. So here's some fun tips. I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's some fun body language tips that you can actually focus on. And this is fun when you connect with people, and even do this before you pick up the phone, because it comes across because of the importance of non-verbal communication. So of course, stand up straight and be relaxed when you meet people, because it helps you to come across with certainty, conviction, confidence, and helps them to feel comfortable straight away that they know they're in great hands with somebody that they're about to talk to and learn more about ASEA. And then appear open and undefended. So keep your arms by your sides. Don't put them in your pockets. Don't cross your arms. Just appear open and undefended. So when you're sitting with people, don't slouch. Keep a straight spine while sitting. Keep your feet about a foot width, a feet hip width apart, or your hip width apart. Some of these are semantics that you'll do naturally anyway, but don't cross your legs is the point that I'm talking about here, particularly if you're speaking on stage or in front of a group of people. Your message won't be communicated as effectively because you won't be building great rapport. Take a deep breath just below the point of your belly, and particularly do that before you're meeting with people, because it will help to ground you and make a huge difference with how you come across and whether or not you'll greet them with great eye contact and a firm handshake. So I was chatting about this before a little bit in terms of mirroring or matching the other person's posture. This is a phenomenal way to build instant rapport. There's nothing manipulative about it. We're all mirrors. It's just part of the rapport building process. But if you've got somebody, and I'll go into it a bit more in a minute, who have their hands behind their head and they're sitting back in a chair, it could be an arrogant posture. You know what? Do it yourself. And I've done this numerous times. I do it all the time. I watch people's body language constantly because it makes the difference as to how I'm going to guide the conversation. This is a #1 rule for me, to always watch the other person's body language. Stand still and don't fidget. Fidgeting really in attention deficit sort of behavior can seem dodgy to some people. If you're naturally like that, just do your very best to pre-prepare and visualize yourself not being fidgety, because it builds more trust when you can stand still. Absolutely goes without saying, of course, before you pick up the phone or walk into a room or walk in to meet someone for the first time on a one-on-one, smile and greet them with a smile. Offer a firm handshake, a firm and gentle handshake. You don't want to be crushing their hand, and you don't want to give a limp handshake either, because it says a lot about your personality. If you have a very weak handshake, it doesn't engender instant trust usually. It's not an indication that you're a hugely confident person, and it doesn't indicate that you're genuinely interested in them. So if you're not sure about your handshake style, focus on it and figure out how it is you're coming across through your handshake, because it's communicating a lot of information about you and whether or not you're respecting the people that you're meeting as well. It delivers that message. Keep eye contact while shaking hands makes sense, but not everyone does it. If you look away when you're shaking someone's hand, they absolutely know on a non-verbal level you're not interested in them at all. So they're likely to not give you the time of day. A smile when greeting someone new, a bit of overkill there, and don't lean on walls or objects when you're actually talking with people or meeting with people. Like I said before, don't slouch or what have you, because it just shows a lack of interest. So I'm not going to go into it in any real detail, but I'll go into just a couple of these here so you have an idea. So when your spine's straight and you relax, they'll naturally match your state and relax too, which makes the interaction just so much more easier when it comes to building rapport, and you'll be more friendly. Here's a dancer's tip. I learned ballet for all my childhood. And this is a posture we would always use. Imagine a string attached to the crown at the top point of your head, going down your back, towards the back of your head, gently pulling your skull upwards at that point, which will elongate your neck and straighten your spine. It's a real posture of confidence. And as I said, friendliness, and you'll have instant respect if you focus on your posture. Keep your shoulders down and relaxed, and that makes you more likable and available as a friend. So think about this when you're angry with someone, outraged, or if you go to a meeting exhausted or tired, like I said before, sometimes you may inadvertently cross your arms over your chest. You don't want to do that because it's defensive and you're blocking the dialogue staying open. So it's like holding a shield over your heart, which is how it's described here. So when you do that socially, it's that you don't feel safe, thereby you're coming across as a threat. So keep your arms relaxed and to your side. The gift of ASEA is way too important for us to do non-verbal things that are going to disempower the people we're in front of, diminish our power and presence and commitment in this world and commitment to ASEA. It's just not worth it. Your job there is to build rapport to help them to make an educated decision about ASEA. So here's the mirroring aspect I was talking about before. So it's an old tribal truth that we instantly feel more comfortable with people who move, dress, and actually look like us. So, and also like our dogs too. We often pick dogs that look like us. We see it in the dog beach all the time, Bart and I. So one thing you can do to create a quick sense of rapport is match or mirror the posture of the person you're talking to. So wherever their hands are, mirror that. Wherever they're facing in terms of their shoulders, mirror that with them. They cross their legs, cross the same leg, mirror that. They sit back in their chair, sit back in your chair. The same goes with the pace at which they talk at, as I mentioned earlier. The personality profiles can go into such depth really and break it down into so much minutiae, you can get lost in all this. But the idea is they talk quickly, talk quickly. They're enthusiastic, talk upbeat and enthusiastic. They're more grounded and kinesthetic or feeling oriented. Slow your speech down to match and mirror their speech. It's a way of them being able to hear you and understand you so you can get your message across. So when they straighten up, and it is a way when you do this, and have fun with it, because it is fun when you start focusing on this. It builds trust and closeness and instant rapport. So people who rush around with their head down and walk into a room where they're not really claiming the room, or walk into a meeting where they're coming across as with their head down or rushing, what have you, you're delivering the message if you do that. You don't care about the person that you're meeting with, because you're in a world all of your own, which yet again brings it back to prepare for your meeting energetically. And to draw attention to yourself as powerful, confident, and open-hearted person, when you stop into a room or enter a doorway, for example, breathe the room in, connect. And when you sit down and you are connecting with someone through that smile, through that real sense of certainty in self, knowing what you're offering the gift of, then you'll easily be able to build rapport with the person that you're meeting with more instantly. So to further that, assess what's going on and feel the energy in the room that you're going into. Feel where people are connecting and where they're not. This is a fun thing to do even in a coffee shop. So when you do have this sussed out, you'll be able to establish yourself as someone who's both important and who treats everyone before you as important. As ASEA founder Tyler Norton says, the only person that matters is the one standing right in front of you. So make sure you're showing up as the person you need to be, so that they non-verbally understand that you're there for them, because there's nothing else that's more important than the person standing right in front of you. So Mother Teresa says peace begins with a smile, and she's absolutely right. So when you walk in, I said this before, but make sure you do it, and do it throughout the connection you're making with people too. And during the phone call, they are naturally allured to joy and good feeling. So when you take in the world around you, just smile. If you're having a hard day, or you're busy and you're rushed or whatever, smile, just smile, breathe deep, and people will be more attracted to you. So there was a document I showed in the beginning from the Share It Guide, which just goes into building rapport. I've highlighted it here just so that you can understand there's some other things that we can do. So of course we have to be great listeners. Don't, under any circumstances, talk over the top of people. Don't cut them off, and don't raise your voice when talking over the top of them in a more dominant stance, because it just won't be delivering the message that you're seeking to understand before being understood. So remember, you are a problem solver, and you have a gift that nobody else has in the world when it comes to the stabilization of these molecules, and also with the unique culture that ASEA offers in this business model. We have something no one else has. So make sure that you seek to understand before being understood. This is an old common one in our profession. You can ask form questions. And keep this in mind as an acronym, because it really helps. So ask them about their family. If you don't know a lot about their occupation, ask them a little bit about them. Be genuinely interested in them. Ask them what they do for fun, and then you'll know how to better deliver the message of ASEA. If you're delivering the message of ASEA without building great rapport, without knowing a little bit about them, then how can you uncover needs and actually add value by offering them something that may be a fit? If you don't find out about them and show genuine interest, you've heard the expression, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, care about them, genuinely be interested. Don't go in with ASEA as a business transaction, as this person being your next presidential triple diamond. Go in genuinely with a servant's heart to make the connections, to find out more about them, and then deliver with finesse the message of ASEA that you're so passionate about, that will fit a need that they'll naturally uncover when they talk to you about ASEA. And if they don't, you can ask them questions about what they may be looking for in life, or what their next steps is in terms of their future, and find out questions that can dig to open them up to be able to meet their need. Always remember their name. If you're meeting with a lady named Sarah, don't call her Susan. Just write it down somewhere. If you have to, write it down on your hand where they can't see it. Just make sure you remember their name. It's the most important thing to people. And I've already mentioned the firm handshake, look them in the eyes, a bit about mirroring their body language. And always a good tip that I learned a long time ago, when making phone calls, and you also see people doing this on webinars now, remember to stand up and smile when you're talking. So having said all this, maybe you're somebody who does this naturally, but the fun part of this process is to go out tomorrow, or making calls tonight, or meeting with people tonight potentially, and just think about how you're coming across and who you're connecting with, what type of person you're connecting with, based on what I've shared. So I mentioned that I was going to go through what to share with people and show them. This is generic. You'll have your own potentially favorite tools that you like to share with people. But when it comes to controllers, then they love to, there's some information here that relates specifically to some team tools. So if you've got this information, just read down this list and you'll know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to controllers, if you don't know what the three-way telephone conversation strategy is about, it's about connecting a controller with somebody that that's important. That's an opinion leader, your upline. You don't want to waffle with these people. It's about being brief, be brilliant, get to the point, be direct. And you want someone with more experience with you if you're not really sure about how to handle some objections that might be thrown at you from the controlling personality type. Make sure you have your upline ready so you can make an instant three-way phone call. Get your upline to be the expert, get them to be the person with more experience, delivering quick, concise and direct information to the controlling personality type. Another great thing to do as well, depending upon how analytical the controller is, you'll want to get them information on the compensation plan. If you Google Brilliant Compensation with Tim Sales, it's an oldie, but it's brilliant, been around for decades, but it's a great way of explaining our profession. Maybe they're controlling enough that they want the company financial statistics. Sometimes analyzers will as well. Get them what they need. And ASEA also have events like fly-ins, which are special events for certain people who meet that category, who are usually controllers, and they can have more one-on-one experience with the ASEA founders, with the corporate team. Getting a controller to a huge public event as their first point of contact for ASEA may not always work for you. It may be better to connect a controller one-on-one, so they feel important, they have that direct connection, and they're not lost in the crowd. Here's some websites: ASEAScience.com, ASEA Genesis Video, I Am ASEA, scholar.google.com as well. So analyzers. So company financial statistics may be good for analyzers. ASEAScience.com will be phenomenal for them. They'll want to knock themselves out that way. You'll want to connect them with other analytical people that they can relate to as well when it comes to sharing their ASEA story about the due diligence they did, and how over time they then realized that their ASEA why came from knowing that they had a responsibility once they looked at certain information that was analytically based to share ASEA with others. You can also demonstrate the product, the Renew 28 on analyzers too, so that they can actually look and see results right then and there. So if you don't know about that, invite the person who invited you to this webinar tonight. And there's brilliant Facebook pages: ASEA Healthy Self, ASEA Wealthy Self, and ASEA United Facebook groups. You can ask the person who invited you to tonight's webinar to get you connected with those sites, where they can find information and testimonials and stories that will help them to make a decision with ASEA. Promoters. So you can send them information, as I mentioned before, on incentives and promotions, convention party videos. They may or may not like the compensation plan. Sometimes they do, but usually it's too detail oriented. Just get an idea as to whom you're talking with. Do demonstrate the product on promoters. They want to feel it, they want to see it, they want to experience it, and connect them to the right Facebook pages as well. Now, with supporters, for example, I'd mentioned before, they usually want and connect with, and you can create phenomenal conversations with supporters when it comes to talking about the ASEA ethos and ASEA's culture. And the ASEA Genesis video with the formation and founding of ASEA, if you haven't seen that, that's the one that made me say yes to ASEA. So I have a lot of supporter in me. That will talk their language. You'll speak, and they'll know that you're listening to them when you can give them a tool that resonates with them. If you don't know, just ask. What type of information would you like me to send you? And you can list a little bit and just let them tell you, and then you're giving them what they want. So demonstrating the product, of course, and then sharing with them information about ASEA's humanitarian foundation, the advancinglife.org, is really important to these people because they want to know the soul of ASEA. They want to connect with the heart of ASEA. They want to know ASEA is doing great things in the world. So before your meeting, find out if they're a supporter oriented. It'll help get you in the headspace to prepare, to know you've got the information on hand about Advancing Life Intro. You've done a little bit of due diligence if you're not that familiar with connecting with supporters in terms of the Advancing Life or ASEA culture, so you can connect with them and speak their language more effectively. The other thing too, of course, is stay detached from the outcome. So when you are firmly rooted in your ASEA why, and it is easy to stay detached from the outcome because you'll be indestructible. It's ridiculous to think you're going to make a brilliant connection with everyone all of the time. Some people will love what you've got to say and some won't, and that's okay, because we're looking for the people who are looking to make some changes in their life, whether it's at the cellular level through transforming their health or through transforming their finances in a way in which they can make a huge impact in the world. So just know that staying detached from the outcome is sometimes difficult in the beginning as ASEA associates, but it'll serve you more than anything else when it comes to not getting down and riding this roller coaster ride. Because when you know the gift of ASEA, and when you know who you are and the gift you're offering by adding value to the lives of people who are ready to listen, then you're going to continue with your journey in ASEA, which is going to be a profound future if you hold true to who you are when you connect with people and deliver the ASEA message in a great way that they can listen to. And then last but not least, this seems a bit silly, but some people who aren't that brilliant at reading body language, they can talk people into ASEA and out of ASEA at the same time. Watch the cues, understand the personality types you're talking to, and don't overstay your welcome. Have an end point to your meeting. Always book a meeting from a meeting, but go in, and this is what I visualized that I shared in the beginning. I go in, okay, when I end this meeting with someone, or this phone call, or this presentation in public or webinar, here's the call to action steps that I want to be achieving. Here's the information that I'd like to leave with people, and guide people on that journey. It's easier than you think if you prepare to build rapport by getting into a good state beforehand. And if you focus on being present and listening with the people who are in front of you, where I said earlier, as Tyler said, nobody else matters except them in that moment. What you've got for dinner, how much you don't like them when you first meet them. Maybe they annoy you because they're the opposite personality profile to you. See it as a game and remember the gift you're offering. Stay detached from the outcome and don't overstay your welcome, because this is what I've seen. I've done this myself to people in the past. It's not fun. It's an uncomfortable position to be in. And some people will put into a coma when we first start out with giving information to people in this business and in ASEA, but it's okay. Learn from it. Just learn from it. Get great at reading body language, building rapport, and most of all, be yourself, because connection, as I said before, it isn't a one-time activity. You're going to build on the relationship of trust, where eventually someone will be able to give you their decision, whether they're saying yes to ASEA or no to ASEA. Just know if they've said no to ASEA, you've still offered them a huge gift, because you don't know whom they know and you don't know what you've said that may make a huge difference through a referral or at the right time when they speak to somebody else. So I hope that you had fun with that tonight, because it's a topic that I really love, and I wouldn't be in this business without these communication skills, because it's naturally how I breathe and think. And if you're studying other personality profiles, that's great. Whatever resonates with you, have fun with it. Have fun with putting yourself into one or more categories. And as long as you be present, be you, you'll be having the time of your life through this business. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time and company tonight. And I'll just actually end the recording and see if there's any questions. But thanks again, everyone.